Hello and welcome back to another Millennial Minute. I'm David Grasso. Today's tough question: should vaccines be mandatory for students going back to school? You've already heard from our guest, Satya Marar, and joining him is Dr. Sam Barone. He's the founder and chief medical officer of Halodine LLC. Welcome to you both. So we'll start with you, Satya. Vaccines shouldn't be on the table. You mentioned a lot of other stuff and demands are just coming from unions and whatnot. So you don't feel like vaccinating kids is a realistic public policy for putting kids back in school?
I don't feel like we should wait until they're vaccinated when we have a good idea of what the health risks are and how they can be managed otherwise. Because the health risks of keeping the schools closed on students' mental health is obviously pretty terrible. And we've seen in places like Las Vegas, for example, they decided to reopen the schools and renege on their decision to keep them closed because they saw just what toll it was taking on the student population. This disruption in normal life is not good, and we've seen that it extremely disproportionately also affects students from communities of color, students from impoverished backgrounds, and that's unacceptable.
So, Doc, let's talk about this. A lot of 50 states have legislation, with a list of vaccines that are required to attend public school. You said previously before this segment, to me personally, that this vaccine hasn't been well studied in young children. Can you tell us more about that and why maybe what the vaccine is doing for adults may differ for what it does for kids?
Right. So, the first thing is, as I said in my opening statement, the vaccines are great, and it's been an immense public health undertaking that we've been able to get vaccines out and be able to get them into the hands of people. But it's been, they've been studied thus far. They've only been studied in adults. So we don't precisely know the exact effects of safety and efficacy that exist on school-age children. The other thing is that we do know that they do a great job of protecting against serious disease and preventing deaths and hospitalizations, but people still may be getting infected and still have the potential to spread the infection, even though they might not be getting sick. So without this additional information that we have, we don't know to make a policy to say, let's go back to school or wait for these to go back to school. We don't know how much better it's going to help us or how much better of a situation we're going to be in with those vaccines before we would be going back to school.
Satya, you're a big libertarian, so I imagine you're skeptical of any sort of blanket policies across the board.
Look, the last thing you want to do is to set a precedent whereby the government can mandate any type of compulsory treatment for, say, in adults. The government has pretty poor form on this. Back between the 1930s and 1970s, they conducted the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. They injected, African Americans with syphilis while telling them that they were getting free healthcare, and 1 in 6 of them ended up dying from that. Obviously, this is in no way comparable to the expedited vaccine rollout for COVID. But when you set the precedent in the book saying, hey, the government has said that everyone has to get this vaccine, it's only a matter of time between some point in the future when some other sort of treatment, which carries very different side effects and risks, ends up potentially becoming mandated based on that precedent.
So, Doc, I want to close up with the last question here. So you don't necessarily think, even in a perfect world where every kid could be vaccinated before they went back to school, that doesn't necessarily mean that schools would be 100% COVID safe. Is that correct? Am I understanding that?
Yeah, that's true. Based on the information that we have right now about the vaccines, there's certainly the need to have additional layers of protection to be able to ensure safety. It's layered mitigation to be able to protect us and through all of our activities, not just school, but also returning to activities of daily living and the economy.
Well, on that note, thank you both so much for weighing in on this controversial topic. I'm sure a lot of people will appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you all for watching. Be sure to follow us at Bold TV. I'm David Grasso. Until next time.